REA
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 Audio.
REA Audio
REA Audio.
REA Audio
Audio.
REA Audio.
ReEmployAbility.
Crystal Hundley is the Director of Human Resources at ReEmployAbility, and you joined us a couple months ago. We talked about some COVID things and some back to work things, and it seems like every day, almost every hour, things change in this world.
Absolutely.
With regards to just work-life balance and all kinds of stuff. So I invited you to come back to talk to us again about some of the things that you foresee in the future and things that have happened and ways companies can pivot to be better at what they do. And so, Crystal, thanks for coming back.
Absolutely.
Again.
My pleasure.
Do you mind just giving us a quick overview of your background and how you got with us?
Absolutely. I am a proud military spouse. My husband retired from the Marine Corps after 21 years. We have 2 adult children, and through that journey, I got my bachelor's degree in human resource management, my master's in business administration, and I, about a decade ago, got my senior certified professional certification from SHRM.
Okay.
So I've been in the HR thing for a while. I really enjoy it. I love people, and I think you're going to be able to catch that from me as we talk today.
Yeah, for sure. You've done so much good here at ReEmployAbility since you've been here, and we're going to touch on that a little bit as we go on. So you have quite a diverse background, especially with the military experience that you
Yes.
have. And so I'm always curious. So like I went to college, I was a communications major, and I learned a ton of stuff in college. But I think I learned more in my first job in the first 6 months at a radio station than I did in 4 years of college.
Absolutely.
So can you fill us in a little bit? Like, what are some of the things that you picked up that have made you better at what it is that you do now in your out of educational
Yeah. Okay.
experience?
So I love education. I value education, but I honestly say sometimes Judge Judy and Dr. Phil helped me to
Right.
be a better
Yeah.
HR professional. And what I mean by that is just recognizing that what we're dealing with are people, right? We're dealing with people. They're very dynamic. Life is messy sometimes. They don't all fit into scenarios from a textbook. And so you have to be creative, and you have to be willing to lean into what those people are dealing with in order to give them some great solutions to whatever that is that you're looking for, whether it's a leader or an entry-level employee.
Probably a lot of trial and error.
You bet.
Have you ever made a mistake at what you do?
Absolutely. In
Okay.
fact, that's something that I say in jest, but for real. I make this stuff up as I go.
Yeah. Shh. Don't tell anybody.
So I think often it's trying to figure out what works for that particular team, what works in that particular season of that company, and running with the things that work and making, tweaking it to make it work even better.
If I feel like, and we talk about this on the sales side all the time, and it's funny you say you make things up as you go, because I tell the sales team and all the trainings we do, I didn't make any of this up.
Right.
I steal it from every place else.
Fair,
right?
I do as well.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not, it's just paying attention to what would work in certain situations and the context of things, right?
That's right.
And so human connection, I think, has become so important, especially these past 2 years.
That's right.
And, we have, as listeners, risk managers, adjusters, people within the work comp world who aren't necessarily in leadership roles, but I feel like they are leaders because they're leading people along a certain path in
That's
either
right.
getting them back to work or ensuring that they're not injured, those types of things. So to me, that's a leader. For
Absolutely.
Sure, right?
At least a facilitator, right? Facilitating to the next step. And I think the only thing I would correct is I don't think human connection has recently become important. I think it's always been important, but it's just recently being elevated to the level that we're paying a little bit closer attention, and we're making different choices as leaders or in the workplace that highlight the very essence of being a human that needs connection.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think we're seeing things that we didn't see
Yes.
before. We were joking in our sales meeting yesterday about how things have progressed in the past couple of years and how we've had to change the way we do things in order to be as impactful as we
That's
possibly
right.
can. And I can remember in March of 2020 telling the sales team that they were going to have to turn the video screens on their Zoom calls, and like jaws dropped. They're like, I am not turning my screen on. And now we just had a call yesterday with somebody, and I was so proud of them. Like, they are asking other people to turn their screens on, and they've found ways to do that have made it, easy and less uncomfortable.
That's
and those
right.
types of things. So we're always adapting and trying to get better. But I still say I would much rather be face to face with somebody than be on a Zoom call, right?
I agree.
So there was a article on March 20th, riskandinsurance.com, about what the workplace will look like coming out of COVID.
Right.
And we kind of talked about it briefly before you came on, and they highlighted 4 things. One was vaccination requirements. They talked about long COVID. Both of those things are what they are.
That's
right. But what I thought you might be able to talk to us a little bit about was the return to the office. That was a big highlight that they talked about. And they also talked about the Great Resignation.
Right.
So return to the office. I know that there are a lot of adjusters and risk managers who are in the process of going back to offices.
Sure.
Some of them are kind of hybrid. Some of them are staying at home. And that creates some different dynamics.
It does.
Right? So how would you point people in the right direction to adjust to whatever it is that they are being asked to do now?
Yeah. So I think one of the things to recognize is that there is not a one size fits all approach, right? So depending on the industry, the position, the company, and truly the position within that company, there might be different expectations that can be at play. One thing to consider is making sure that you have an open conversation with your leadership. If there are concerns that you have about what's being asked of you, make sure that you express that. Now, that doesn't mean that we're all going to be able to make up our own rules
Right.
or our own schedules, but to the leadership, I ask that you pay attention. There is an expectation that we are better listeners now than we were before COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So, as I joke that I make this up as I go, there's some expectation that our employees are able to request what they want, and we should allow that to happen a little bit. What do I mean? Maybe a flexible work schedule. Maybe I can come in a little later on some days, leave a little earlier. Maybe it's hybrid where it's not fully remote. Maybe I'm coming to the office 2 to 3 days a week, or some other version of that. Mm-hmm. Where it gets sticky is, how do you still run a business or a team when you've got people kind of all over the place? Mm-hmm. And that idea of human connection comes back into play. How do I make sure that you're being taken care of, if you will, and your needs are being met in the workplace if you're not in the workplace?
Right.
So I think we have to just continue to be creative. Something we've done here is we have an REA at home Teams chat. Mm-hmm. So any of our employees who work remote are in that Teams chat, and we do some fun connection things, not work related at all. And we have something called like a coffee break on Tuesdays and Thursdays where we send out a ridiculous question.
Right.
Yesterday's question was if it's National Lemon Chiffon Cake Day, and would you rather eat it with chopsticks or a butter knife? Yeah. Silly things like that, just to allow that little connection. But even as you do fun things and you do lunches or you do virtual meetings together, I think we have to just check ourselves as leaders, as people with influence. Do we care about the work-life balance of our people? And we have to be authentic about that. If I don't really care if you can make it to your kid's soccer game, then that's going to show through any of the behaviors I come up with anyways. Yeah. So I think there's this expectation that we do care, and that we recognize that the more we value the whole person, the more productive those employees are here at work. The more they feel valued, the more they give. So it's one of those things. We've heard this principle stated many times by professionals throughout the industry. When you take care of employees at the highest level, your business will soar, right? Your customers are being taken care of. The product is higher quality, whatever the case might be. So doing right by your people, by caring, is going to have many rewards.
So there was also an article that I read recently, and God, I can't remember who the person was that said it now. It's terrible, but a CEO was asked, what about remote work?
Right.
And what would you say about working 100% from home? And basically he said, well, if you get the job done, I don't care where you work.
Right.
Right.
That's right.
But that also lends the question of accountability. I understand that, I'm an old school guy. I'm not, I'm almost 50, and I guess I've just been in corporate world and everything, that it was hard for me to feel like I could manage my team
From afar.
100% remote,
Right.
right? And I'm a pretty hands-off guy. I think if you asked any of our team here, I'm not a taskmaster.
Sure.
I'm not a micromanager, but still I like to see people and go
That's
out
right.
and just stand by their desk and be like, hey, how's it going today? And that's very hard to do when you're remote. So how do you address people that are concerned about accountability when it comes to working from home? Because I know that it's not great for everybody.
That's right. And I think I'm one of those.
Mhm.
I am way too extroverted and social that during the majority of COVID, when I was sitting at home at my dining room table working, I was very productive,
Mhm.
but there was a lot missing from those interactions that didn't happen anymore. I think something to consider is that in some ways, this helps us reflect on the performance of an employee and really remove all the other kind of extracurricular things, right? The fact that if I go to lunch with one employee more often than another, I might be more favorable towards that employee. That
Mhm.
removes everything, gives everybody a level playing field where I'm just monitoring their performance.
Mhm.
Now, again, if it works for that person and they are performing at a high level, they're feeling included, they're feeling connected, then all is well.
Mhm.
But I think whenever you start to monitor their performance and things might go down, they're maybe less involved or engaged in some of the group meetings or team chats, that's when you might recognize that they need something a little bit different.
Mhm. And so obviously there's a ton of resources to go to. I'm sure that there's a lot of kind of making it up as we go
That's
along,
right.
right? But if people have questions about that, what's your go-to for information on what's up to date in the HR world?
SHRM is my go-to.
Mhm.
So SHRM is the Society for Human Resource Management. There's tips, tools, resources, video. There's articles. There's forms you can download. I mean, there's just everything.
Right.
That the Department of Labor, of course, gives you all kinds of updates on, especially the COVID-related things.
Mhm.
But SHRM tends to be that. Another thing is your network. I think that's another thing COVID did for us, is it helped us really rely on our network of, hey, we're doing it this way, or we're thinking about doing this. What are you guys doing over there?
Yeah.
And trying to create something based on what other people are saying is working.
Let's talk about the Great Resignation real quick.
Oh,
So,
yes.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
I don't know if I love that term or not love that
It's-
term.
yeah.
It is what it is, right? But so the Great Resignation happened. Millions of people left their jobs.
right.
And we're also finding that millions of people took different jobs,
Mhm.
thinking that the grass was going to be greener
That's
on the
right.
other side. And I always say the grass is greener because usually there's more manure on the other side.
Could be.
And I think a lot of people have found that out. I
Yeah.
saw another article about that, about how people were disenchanted with their new jobs.
That's right. Yeah.
And some folks had been attracted to things that maybe aren't necessarily what they expected them to be. So how would you address that now? Especially, we're not hearing as much about trouble hiring as much. I mean, it's still out there.
Sure.
There's still that shortage. But can you talk a little bit about, from an employer standpoint, how do you address concerns about what a job is and isn't
That's right.
when you're interviewing people? I mean, you want to be transparent, but you also want to bring people in.
That's right. I start it before we interview.
Right.
Absolutely. So the job posting, there's a lot of conflicting thoughts on how much you share on a job posting. Should you put the salary? Should you put everything out there? So we put as much of the position as we can. We've really highlighted our benefit package as well, because I think that's what a lot of people are looking for, is what can I get from this, this company, this opportunity. Upon they're sending in an application, I then reply to them with the actual salary, with the work schedule, with the kind of expectations that we're going to have. and the fact that not everybody can do this job.
Mm-hmm.
And when they read that, if they choose to move forward with an interview, we will set that up. So I think it's before they even talk to one of us, they are getting the inside scoop of really what's expected. And so transparency is really important. It allows you to make sure that when they come on board, they're staying, because they don't feel that there was any smoke and mirrors. They don't feel like there was some bait and switch that happened. They knew what they signed up for, and they're coming on board eyes wide open, right? So from there, it's making sure that you have an authentic environment for them to experience the job, the team, the company, the culture, all of that. And again, if you're trying to sell them on how great the culture is, but people aren't enjoying the workplace, it's not going to go well. They're going to find out the reality soon enough, right?
Yeah. And we were talking about this a little bit before, like, so the generations are different in what they expect.
Oh, definitely.
And we're going to talk about that a little bit next time,
That's right.
if that's okay. But one thing that did come up in that same article was that Gen Xers tend to feel like it's okay for them just to bail on a job after being in it for 2 months.
Sure.
Right? Did I say Gen Xers?
Or millennials.
I meant millennials.
Yeah.
Whereas me being a Gen Xer tend to want to kind of stick through it
right.
for a little bit longer. And maybe that's bad, right? Maybe I'm forcing myself to suffer longer than I have to.
And I think that goes to the differences in the generations. Why? Why would we have some people who stayed? I mean, our parents and grandparents stayed at a position for decades. Perhaps they had only one job or two jobs their entire life. And that's because there was pensions at the end. You get the gold watch, you get these things that rewarded loyalty. Pensions are gone. The gold watch is gone. There is much more value now in diversifying your experience. So even from an HR perspective, it is more and more rare to see that people on their resumes have stayed for a decade or longer at a position. They are not necessarily job hopping. I feel that they are kind of testing the waters, gaining some skills, and moving on to a next either lateral or upward position to utilize those skills learned. So it's a little different.
It is. And we talked to Ariel Theodore past podcast. And what I thought was amazing was the way she kind of handled that situation here. She'd been here for a long time. She's learned a lot. I mean, she couldn't have done her next position without what she had done here. That's right. But the way she went about it in my day was unheard of. I would have never told my boss that I'm planning on leaving in 2 to 3 months or whatever it was. Right. And I think Deb really embraced that and felt proud of the fact that we were able to grow her and move her on to something. So obviously you have to be aware of what your leadership is like in that situation.
And that's that dual transparency. If we're going to be authentic and transparent on, if we expect that, I should say, from our employees, then we should provide that as well.
Right.
So giving what we expect, leading by example, for real.
Yeah, for sure. You will come back next week?
Absolutely.
Good, because I want to talk a little bit about kind of all the crap that seems to be piling up on people's shoulders. There's a lot of things that have happened in the past 2 years, and it seems like it's one crisis after another and after another. And especially talking to risk managers and adjusters who have always had a huge burden on their back. Now there's more and more and more. You have a great experience in handling those types of things, and I'd like to get your feedback on that.
Absolutely.
Great. Thanks, Crystal.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening this week to ReAudio. Remember, if you have any comments or suggestions for an upcoming episode, please let us know. You can email todd@reemployability.com. Also, please follow ReAudio on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Stitcher or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also check out more content at listentorea.com. Now, next week, we're going to finish up with Crystal as she shares some perspective on carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. As you might expect, you may not have to do all that heavy lifting. Have a fantastic rest of your week.